Are you stressing out about editing, spending hours on your videos just trying to make them perfect when in the end you just kind of feel like you're falling behind? If so, this is the perfect video for you. And what I'm going to say in this video is going to change your life. Okay, well, maybe that's a little strong. Maybe it won't necessarily change your life for like forever or whatever, but it will change the way that you think about editing because the reality is editing doesn't have to be complicated. We make it complicated and we think that it needs to be, but I'm going to show you in this video why it doesn't actually need to be complicated. And I'm going to give you some practical tips to keep it from getting complicated so that we can just keep this as simple as possible moving forward. So let's start with the why. Let's start with why this thing doesn't actually need to be complicated. And the reality is, if you look at people all over YouTube, like probably the best example of it is Sam Sulek, who's got 3.6 million viewers or 3.6 million subscribers at this point, and he does very little editing in any of his videos. It's a great example of this. Roberto Blake, another guy, he's got 620,000 subscribers. And yeah, he does some editing, but it's not crazy. It's not like a lot of this retention editing that you see in videos or that was so big for so long. He's not doing stuff like that. He's doing simple little things and text overlays and stuff like that that is really, really easy to do in whatever program you're actually using. Another one, Ruslan KD, 630 subscribers, 630,000 subscribers, sorry. And very little editing in any of his videos. And it's not just these big creators that we're talking about. Like, I don't know about you, but I've seen plenty of smaller people, of smaller creators who put out a video. Maybe they're used to doing a lot of retention editing or whatever. And all of a sudden they put out a video with almost no editing and it goes nuts and it goes crazy. And those are the ones that actually end up going viral for them. I've seen it time and time and time again. And honestly, a lot of those videos, I watch them and I go, dude, how is this? How did this happen? I don't understand because I get bored. And like, I'm seeing all these pauses and I'm seeing all these mistakes and I'm seeing all this stuff that would drive me crazy as an editor and as somebody who's been doing this and editing their own videos or whatever. I see all those things and I know that for me, it would make me nuts. It's the reality of where we're at in YouTube right now is that it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be so crazy and complicated because like viewers don't necessarily care about that. They care about you. They care about your message. They care about you bringing value to them. That's all people care about. What it looks like and whether it's got all kinds of flashy things going around. I watched one guy who's got little things that fly over his head. Why? I don't get that. And he's got way more subscribers than I do, so I can't really like knock the guy. But stuff like that, I don't think you need to do. I don't think you need to stress out over that. We're going to talk about some really simple things that I do think that we need to do in editing. But let's just stick with the idea that complicated doesn't mean better. And for most viewers, it can come off as inauthentic. Like what people actually want to see is somebody being real with them. And if you can be real, but not boring, and if you can be real, but still bring value, then that's a much better place to be than being flashy and oh, well, but I got all these things that I made in Apple Motion that look really cool. And yeah, I've done that stuff too, and I still continue to do it. But let's talk about reality for a second. I got really excited because I started with Apple Motion and just started kind of playing around with it. I was watching a bunch of videos because I needed a graph. I needed a simple thing. I wanted a graph where the little line goes up over time or whatever. And I couldn't really find anything good in B-roll. So I went into Apple Motion and I started watching videos and whatever. And I created this graph and it was all cool. And it took me, I don't know, probably 30 minutes, maybe an hour if you like include the time that I spent watching video or whatever to get there. So 30 minutes to an hour to build this graph that literally was on screen in one of my videos for like 2 seconds. And it's nuts. It's like, why are you doing that, dude? Like, why are you spending all this time over something that's going to be on your screen for 2 seconds? And I do the same thing with B-roll. Like I will spend hours scouring like different sites where I can get B-roll and not have to pay for it because I'm cheap and I don't want to pay for stuff. So I'll spend hours looking for the right B-roll clip that I can put in my video and then that B-roll clip will be on there for like 2 or 3 seconds. And it's like, okay, I get it. I understand why we think that we need to have that stuff, but is it really a reality at the end of the day that nobody's going to watch your videos unless you have flashiness going on? These creators have proven that that's not the case, that you absolutely don't need that stuff. And that as long as you're doing the right things, you can get by without it. Viewers want your message. Over editing makes you seem artificial at times. I'm going through my notes here. And then, really simple videos, things where you are being authentic, tend to lead to more engagement, and it leads to people putting more comments and liking more and hopefully sharing and things like that that are good for all of those different metrics. Now, you want to keep it fast paced. You want to still go through as quickly as you can to bring somebody the value that they're looking for in your video, but you don't need all that other stuff. I mean, in the end, the reality is done is better than perfect most of the time. And if you need to sacrifice editing and you need to sacrifice those hours sometimes that you can spend, I have spent hours doing edits. I have videos up on my channel right now that I spent 5, 6 hours doing the editing on just on the video, not including even looking at B-roll and trying to pull other things. I'm just talking about straight up editing for that video, 5 or 6 hours easily. And I promise you, those videos didn't do any better on my channel than any of my other videos. The videos where I put them up with very little editing or very minimal editing did just the same. As a new content creator, that quality that we think we need to have is not nearly as important as quantity. We need videos. We need to have bulk. We need to have as many videos as we can put up over time. That's what grows a YouTube channel, because if you don't have that, first of all, if you don't have videos up and you don't have a lot of videos, you're missing out on opportunities for those things to get big and for more views to come and all of that stuff. If you got 3 videos, I'd much rather have 30 videos than 3 videos. And so, because you've got now 30 chances for them to go big. So as a small creator, you need as many chances as you can get. And so anything that's going to keep you from doing that, and editing is probably the biggest piece keeping you from doing it and keeping you from putting up more videos, cut it out. Stop doing it. Stop doing editing maybe altogether, or let's talk about some ways that you can do still editing, but it doesn't have to be crazy. So there are still some essential things that you can do for editing, like, for example, taking out unnecessary words or taking out spaces or big pauses or whatever. You probably have noticed in this video so far, there have been a couple of edits. My thought process going into making this video was that I was going to do it without editing and just go straight from the beginning and just talk. But the reality is sometimes you talk faster than your brain works or whatever, and so you fumble things or you end up talking in circles. I've done that a couple of times so far, and so I end up having to go back and cut that later. And there have been other times when I had like big pauses because I was like stopping to think about, okay, what's my next point? Or maybe I'm looking at my notes, but I don't want to spend the whole time like looking down here at what my next point is. So sometimes I have to cut that stuff out. You've probably seen that in the video so far. Make sure your audio sounds good, because that's far more important than what your editing actually looks like. If you have crap audio, that's going to make somebody click off your video much quicker than somebody going, well, but he doesn't have fancy graphics. Like, really? Are they really going to say that about your video and they're really not going to watch it because you don't have fancy graphics? I mean, maybe some people, but I don't think so. Transitions, like I see people, especially newer creators, putting all these crazy transitions and stuff in between their cuts. And most of the time, you don't need that. I don't use them at all. Most big creators, you don't see them using them not all that often. Sometimes they'll use like B-roll to cover a cut, and I do that as well, and make it where it's just like voiceover talking and it's B-roll playing. But what really happened was I had a big mess up right there, and so I cut it and made it sound perfect, and you can't see the fact that the video was cutting or whatever. Text overlays, sometimes that's important. If you have like a point that you want to drive home, you want to put up a thing that says essential editing techniques for beginners or whatever, then you can create a slide for that and put that up. That's really simple to do in every editing program that you happen to use. I personally use Final Cut Pro. I've always used it. I kind of started there. I started with iMovie way back in like 2014 or whatever it was. And then eventually, in very short time, I graduated to Final Cut Pro, paid that $300 or whatever it was at the time, and am so glad that I did, because now here we are all these years later, and I still have access to it. I still am able to use it on a daily basis. It's what I learned on, and it's what I'm good at. So, and even with that, and even with all of those years, it still takes me forever to edit, because it's just not a skill set that I necessarily am really good at. But it's not important. If I want to do a simple little text overlay, or the simple little thing that pops up on your screen that tells you to like and subscribe and all of that stuff, which is probably playing right now. And by the way, if you're getting any value from this video so far, do me a favor and hit that like button, because it goes a long way towards the algorithm pushing this out to more people. And by the way, if you do want to see more videos like this, because I spend time talking to new creators, to people who are probably over 40 like me, who are starting a new channel or thinking about starting a new channel, and they want some tips. They want to learn from somebody who's made every mistake that you can possibly make when it comes to YouTube, and they don't want to make those same mistakes. If that's you, hit that subscribe button. Come along with me on the journey. Here's a nice little workflow that we can talk about when it comes to actually doing simple editing for yourself. First of all, plan it out when you're shooting your video, and don't, like, if you're going to do I'm going to talk this whole time, and no matter what happens, it's going to happen, and that's what's going to be in the video, then cool, do that. But even if you don't maybe feel comfortable doing that, because a lot of people don't have that gift, or they do feel like they need more planning time, they need more like ability to look at notes and stuff like that, then break everything down into small chunks. Break it down into one section. Okay, in this section, I'm going to talk about planning out your shoot before you actually shoot it. So maybe you can kind of go through and study that part, and then shoot that. And what I do to make this simpler is, when I'm doing that method and I'm using like simple snippets or whatever, one section at a time recording, when I record that, I know I'm never going to stop until I get the right take. And so that may take me 15 takes. It may take me 100 takes. Hopefully not, but it may take me a lot of takes to get there. But when I get to editing and I put that thing into my Final Cut Pro, I don't care how many takes it was. All I have to look for is the last jumble of words that happened, and then there was a big pause before that. I know that's my best take. So all I have to do is grab that, put it into Final Cut Pro, and I know that's the perfect take, and I do that for every single one. So if you get in that habit of, and I would suggest even stopping recording at that point. So if you get a good take on something, on a section, stop your recording, and then immediately start recording again, and now go on to your next section and do the same thing. And that way, every single thing that goes into your Final Cut Pro or into CapCut or DaVinci Resolve or whatever program you're using to do editing, you know that no matter how long this clip is, the only part you care about is the last section of audio before you had a cut before that, before you had a pause. And you can very easily see that on the timeline. You can grab it, you can drop it into your video. Honestly, your editing can kind of evolve over time. Again, I think at this point, the biggest thing and the biggest lesson from all of this is not to let editing keep you from uploading, because that's the biggest thing that you can do that will hurt your channel, is not putting up those videos, or taking so long that now you're not being consistent with it. You're not delivering a consistent message to your viewers. Like, if you say you're going to do a video every week, don't let editing be the reason why you just couldn't get a video out this week. Even if you have to shoot it without any editing at all, I believe it's better to put that up, then, as long as it's still good quality content, and as long as it's still something that's bringing value to maybe one person watching it, then it's still worth putting that up, as opposed to ditching it and, okay, well, I'll try better next week and I'll try to get it done next week. Don't do that. Upload your video, skip the editing entirely if you have to, other than the part at the very beginning before you actually started talking, and the part at the end when you were like, after you said your last words, and then you had to kind of go and stop the recording or whatever. Maybe cut that part out. But other than that, just do your video. Just do it without editing and kind of let the chips fall where they may. And don't get me wrong when I'm talking about not doing editing. I am not talking about not planning, because planning for a video is still very important. If you don't do planning, if I have pages of notes, okay, that I'm using for this video, and you'll see me and I look down and I see what my next point is or whatever. If you don't plan for what your video is going to be, it's going to be a rambly mess and you're going to be all over the place. And all you're going to do is kind of talk in circles probably, or you're going to miss points. You're going to miss things that you really wanted to talk about that were very important for the video. And now you got to figure out on the back end, how do I get that in? So make sure you make notes, make sure you have a plan going into it, and you have an outline that you're following. That I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying don't worry about editing. I firmly believe that if you don't let editing get in your way, and you will upload these videos even without all of those hours and hours spent on your editing, and you'll upload them anyway, it's going to help you to grow on YouTube. And another thing that I think is going to help you to grow on YouTube is I firmly believe that every YouTuber should have a secret YouTube channel. And I'm going to talk about that in my next video right here. And if you do want to subscribe to this channel, make sure you click this button. I will appreciate it, and I will talk to you on the next one.